You're now listening to the Story History Podcast for Sleep, the Odd Rituals of Medieval Tooth Care. Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to a time when your toothpaste might contain ashes, your toothbrush was a twig, and the barber who trims your beard might also yank out your molar with the same tools. That's right, we're diving into the strange and often wince-inducing world of medieval tooth care. Picture it. The year is 1347. You're hunched over in your cold timber hut. The straw underfoot crackles as you move. Smoke from the hearth curls into your eyes. There's no Colgate, no floss, no numbing gel, just your own bravery, and maybe a prayer that your next toothache doesn't turn into a death sentence. And spoiler, it often does. You probably won't survive this. Or at least, not with all your teeth intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in from somewhere cozy, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to a rooster's cackle and the dull ache of a familiar enemy. Your back molar is angry again. The dull throb reminds you of yesterday's meal. Coarse rye bread, maybe a piece of salted pork, and not nearly enough water. You press your tongue to the sore spot and flinch. Welcome to your daily medieval reality, where dental hygiene isn't so much a science as it is wishful thinking. You reach for your toothbrush, or rather, a short twig. It's been gnawed at one end to a fibrous fringe. Locals call them chew sticks, plucked from trees like birch, hazel, or even ash. If you're lucky, it's minty. If not, it tastes like bark and regret. Still, you rub it along your teeth with the kind of optimism only desperation brings. Tooth care in this era is practical, not preventative. No one's trying to impress a dentist. They're trying to avoid the barber. Yes, that barber, the one with blood-slicked aprons and bone-handled knives. But more on him later. For now, your mother eyes you from across the room. She tells you to chew on some crushed sage leaves with salt. Good for the gums, she mutters, as if gums are the root of all medieval evil, which, in a way, they are. The smell of damp earth and stale beer fills your nose. That's the scent of your neighbor's breath, and he's stopped by to chat about turnip yields. He's missing 3 front teeth and casually rubs a cloth over the remaining few as he speaks. It's stiff with soot and vinegar, his version of mouthwash. You take a step back. You overhear a child being scolded. They swallowed a loose tooth. The local superstition says doing that means you'll be cursed to have pig's teeth in the afterlife. That's tame compared to the belief in toothworms, tiny invisible creatures that cause cavities by gnawing from the inside. Historians still argue whether this belief came from Babylonian ideas or early misreadings of natural decay. Either way, if you say worms to the wrong person, they might try to smoke them out with burning henbane. Yes, into your mouth. You shuffle down to the village well, greet a woman drawing water with soot-blackened hands. She spits into the bucket, wipes her mouth with a sleeve, and offers you a turn. You decline. There are whispered tales of rich folk in the next town over who have a tooth servant, someone whose only job is to prepare herbs and oils for their master's mouth. Most peasants, like you, make do with a poultice of mashed garlic and wine. It doesn't help the pain, but it makes your breath spicy enough to fend off wolves. As dusk falls, the village gathers around the fire. An elder leans in to tell the children stories of his youth, when a woman down the road lost her tongue after a tooth infection spread to her jaw. No one doubts him. A toothache is a silent clock counting down, and everyone knows someone who didn't make it. A girl shyly asks if it's true that noble women brush their teeth with crushed pearls. The elder laughs. They do, but their teeth fall out all the same. Later that night, as you lie on your hay-stuffed mattress, you run your tongue along your teeth. Some are smooth, others chipped. One wobbles more than it did last week. You wonder, will you still have it by spring? One last thought drifts in before sleep claims you, in a world of daily pain. Your mouth is a battlefield and you are losing ground. The morning sun cuts through the fog, spilling light across a wooden table where today's toothpaste is being prepared. You're not in a pharmacy. You're in your neighbor's cottage, and he's hunched over a mortar, grinding together a fragrant, if suspicious mixture, crushed eggshells, burnt rosemary, powdered deer antler, and just a dash of rock salt. No, this isn't witchcraft, it's what passes for dental science in the 14th century. You squint at the gray, ash-like powder. Open your mouth, he says, cheerfully brandishing a strip of rough cloth. He dips it into the mixture and begins scrubbing your teeth with all the gentleness of a man polishing his boots. It stings, it burns, it tastes like a campfire and regret. But he insists you'll thank him in 10 years, if you still have any teeth left to thank him with. Toothpaste, if you can even call it that, is as varied as the imaginations of desperate villagers. Burnt bread crusts mixed with vinegar, sage and salt, ground pepper and honey, charcoal stirred into lard, even ashes from a deceased dog's bone, believed by some to drive out evil spirits hiding in molars. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were more for superstition or actual cleaning, likely both. But at least you can say this: it keeps your mouth busy and the demons guessing. You walk past the apothecary on your way home. His window displays little glass jars filled with exotic powders, imported myrrh from the East, fennel, seeds, even clove oil, all prohibitively expensive, but rumored to bring relief faster than a prayer. There's a story going around that one knight once paid £1 of silver for a single bottle of mint tincture. Then he died in battle 2 weeks later. At least his breath was fresh back in your own home. Your mother recommends a traditional rinse equal parts vinegar, sage, and a touch of urine. Human, preferably male, preferably morning. Warms the gums, she says with conviction. You try to protest, but she hands you the bowl and looks away. So you swish. And yes, it is every bit as horrific as you'd expect. Chewing was also considered cleaning. Chewing fennel seeds or cloves throughout the day kept the breath somewhat tolerable. At market, some folk nibble on licorice root, black and stringy, stained from overuse. But others chew things for reasons far more spiritual, like rosemary, said to ward off evil and even toothaches caused by soul imbalance. You overhear a widow at the well discussing her son's newest ailment. She says he's been grinding his teeth in sleep, which means a demon is trying to escape through his mouth. Another woman nods solemnly and suggests stuffing lavender under his tongue before bed. You don't ask questions. In the castle kitchens, the scullery maid holds up a lump of beeswax with crushed coral inside. It's a luxury item, reserved for the noble women upstairs who fear their breath might offend the clergy. When no one is looking, she sniffs it and shudders. Across town, a priest writes a letter scolding a parishioner for obsessing too much over dental rituals. Vanity, he calls it. But he himself chews angelica root during long sermons to keep his breath from driving away the more sensitive sinners. Historians still debate whether clergy promoted tooth hygiene or saw it as a distraction from godliness. One thing is certain: the mouth was a mystical zone. It was the entrance to both speech and sin, nourishment and corruption. The cleaner it was, the holier you appeared, or so people believed. A clean mouth meant a clean soul. Or, at the very least, a better chance of scoring a second bowl of stew at a neighbor's table. You hear rumors of monks in distant abbeys who brush their teeth with salt rubbed directly on their fingers. Some even believe this keeps them from temptation, as tooth pain suppresses impure thoughts. Others chant prayers as they clean their mouths, hoping to purify their words along with their gums. And then there's the fringe crowd. A wandering peddler arrives in your village square with a special tooth elixir, made from distilled bat wings, vinegar, and ash. He says it came from the Holy Land. He offers you a sample free. You gag the moment it hits your tongue, and he chuckles. Pain means it's working, he says. Night falls. The village quiets. You sit by a candle, tongue running absent-mindedly over your teeth. They feel ... gritty. Not clean, exactly, but like they've been through something. You reach for your chew stick again, give it one final scrub before bed. In this world, there is no perfection. Only survival lands sometimes, a smile that doesn't frighten the goats. The barber's shop smells like warm ale, metal, and something faintly sour, maybe fear, maybe dried blood. You're not here for a trim, not today. Today, you've got a tooth that feels like it's pulsing with its own heartbeat, and the local barber surgeon is your only hope, or your final mistake. He's a large man with a smudged apron and hands that look like they've never once trembled. On his bench lies a mismatched collection of tools: shears, razors, a curved hook, yes, that infamous pair of iron tongs. They gleam dully in the light, somehow both overused and undercleaned. You sit, gingerly, on a stool that rocks under your weight. He grunts without looking at you, and says, "Which one?" You point. He squints into your mouth, prodding the offending tooth with something that may once have been a knitting needle. Pain shoots up your skull and into your soul. "Ah," he says cheerfully, "we'll get that out quick." This, you realize, is dentistry in the Middle Ages. Barber surgeons weren't just the ones wielding scissors. They were the multitask of medieval medicine: hair cutters, leech applicators, minor surgeons, bloodletters, boil lancers, and, yes, part-time tooth yankers. Historians still argue whether this was born from necessity or pure chaos. But what's certain is that there were few boundaries in their job description. If you bled, they were interested. He pours some ale over the tongs' idea of sanitation. Then he offers you the rest of the mug. You drink, because it's all. There is no anesthetic, no numbing gel, no kind words. He clamps the tongs down. You hear the creak of metal, the cracking of bone, and your own groan swallowed by the room's thick air. It takes 2 pulls, maybe 3. By the end, your face is wet with sweat, and your hands are gripping your knees so hard your knuckles pop. He holds up the tooth like a trophy. "Bad one," he says. "You'll sleep better now." You don't believe him. In some villages, there's a dedicated tooth puller, sometimes a traveling dentist, sometimes just a blacksmith with confidence issues. One popular method involves tying a string around the bad tooth and the other end to a door. You don't want to talk about how that usually ends. There's a superstition that the pain isn't just physically, it's punishment. Toothache is the devil's way of climbing into your thoughts. Your grandmother says. She gives you a clove to hold in your mouth. It numbs it a little. Mostly it distracts you. In wealthier towns, some patients begin demanding luxury extractions, which is a hilarious phrase for having someone dig into your jaw with a stick wrapped in wool. They want rosewater to rinse with afterward. They want to be held down by assistants in clean robes. Some even bring a change of shirt for the occasion. It's all very dramatic and still incredibly painful. You stumble out of the barber's shop, clutching a rag to your bleeding mouth. Your vision is swimming. You almost step into a cart full of cabbage. A boy nearby is watching you, wide-eyed. "Did he cut your tongue out?" he asks. You shake your head. The barber waves from inside. "Don't eat hard bread for a day," he says, "or meat, or drink cold water, or sleep lying flat." He shrugs. "Maybe just don't eat." You trudge home and collapse near the hearth. Your mother heats some wine and mixes it with dried nettle. "Rinse with this," she says. "It's bitter and strangely metallic, but the warmth soothes you." Your friend visits later and tells you about a guy in the next village who tried to pull his own tooth with a dagger. It broke. He died of infection 3 weeks later. "At least you're still here," your friend says. There's something oddly bonding about medieval dentistry, like a trauma that connects everyone, regardless of class. Noblemen might have fancier tools, but the pain is still pain. Rich or poor, your teeth will betray you. Some records mention women practicing minor dental care, especially among midwives and herbalists. They're gentler, more focused on herbs and clove poultices, but they're often ignored by the men who want action, not comfort. Historians are beginning to uncover more of their contributions, though there's still debate over how much influence they truly had in shaping oral medicine. That night, you lie awake, tongue cautiously poking the new gap in your gum line. It feels vast. You wonder if you'll whistle when you talk now. You wonder if that barber really knew what he was doing. You wonder if, centuries from now, someone will invent a way to fix teeth without tongs and prayer. But, for now, you sleep. One tooth lighter. One nightmare richer. Morning sunlight drips across your face like warm honey, but you're not smiling. That gap where your molar used to be feels like a crater. Your jaw aches. Your tongue keeps exploring the hole like a child poking a sore bruise, and you can't decide if you're hungry or just haunted. Still, the village doesn't stop for dental drama. You head out for the baker's. Eyes narrowed against the brightness, avoiding anything crustier than porridge. As you pass the blacksmith's shop, a familiar shriek slices the air. Another patient, another extraction. You pause just long enough to hear a wet pop, and then continue walking, slightly faster. Back at home, your uncle offers sage advice. If a tooth gets loose, pull it before it poisons your brain. You laugh until he tells you about a man in his youth who ignored a rotten tooth until it swelled his whole face. He went blind in one eye, he says. Matter of fact, the rot climbed up through his cheek. You sip your soft, lukewarm ale and decide that maybe uncle isn't full of nonsense. In medieval Europe, tooth removal was considered not just a cure, but a preventative measure. Wiggly tooth? Out. Slightly discolored? Out. Hurts when you chew? Out. There's no such thing as let's monitor it for a few weeks. It's like firewood with a crack, you toss it before the whole pile goes up. But not everyone is so quick to yank. You hear about a widow who swears by a poultice made of barley flour and warm cow's milk, wrapped in cabbage leaves and tied to the cheek overnight. It draws out the evil, she says. You try it, and while the smell is unfortunate, the warmth is oddly comforting. Whether it works, historians still argue whether such remedies were placebo or miracle, but people clung to hope in the absence of no vocain. Across the village green, someone's child is sobbing. You wander over. A baby tooth dangles from the boy's gum like a lone stalactite. The father squats beside him with a rough thread in hand. Just a quick yank, he promises. The child protests. You look away before the deed is done, but the cheering tells you it worked. Superstition surrounds even these innocent milestones. Some bury their children's teeth in gardens, believing it nourishes crops. Others toss them into fires to keep rats from stealing them, because a rat that gnaws on a human tooth might steal your soul. That's just science. You visit the town healer, a woman of many titles. Midwife, herbalist, bonesetter. She looks at your swelling cheek and shakes her head. Didn't cauterize it, she mutters. Then, with far too much casual energy, she hands you a hot iron nail and gestures to the hearth. You back away slowly. In wealthier circles, things are only marginally better. In castles, the royal physician might apply leeches to your jaw to balance the humors. That's their way of saying, we don't know what's wrong, but blood is always suspicious. A noblewoman once had 4 teeth, pulled in one sitting, and was painted in a portrait, smiling with her mouth closed for the rest of her life. Dignity preserved. Tooth pain doesn't care about status, it equals. And for some, the methods become more experimental. There's an old man in the next hamlet over who claims to have cured his toothache with beeswax and the whispered name of a Saint another wears a necklace made from his lost teeth, insisting it keeps the rest from falling out. You nod politely. You do not make eye contact. One fringe ritual involves standing at a crossroads at midnight and reciting a prayer backward while holding a tooth in one hand and a thimble of honey in the other. Historians are, understandably, skeptical. Back home, you chew slowly. Every bite is a gamble. Bread is torn into small pieces. Turnips are mashed with a wooden spoon. You've developed a complex system of tilting your jaw and chewing only on one side. Like a squirrel with secrets. At night, the pain throbs louder than the crickets. You light a candle and stare at your reflection in a metal plate. You pull your lip back and inspect your gums. Red, swollen, the tiny socket still open, like a warning. You whisper a little prayer to Saint Apollonia, patron of toothaches. You're not particularly religious, but at this point, you'll take help from anyone, even a saint, who, ironically, had all her teeth torn out in martyrdom. Before sleep, your neighbor stops by to drop off a blessing herb from the local priest. You boil it in water and swish. It tastes like licorice mixed with regret. You don't ask questions. Sometimes hope is more potent than logic. You finally settle into bed, the pillow soft, the room still. The pain has dulled to a whisper. You wonder, how many teeth do you really need, anyway? The sun is high, and you're standing in a meadow, holding a bouquet of marjoram and mint, not for cooking, but for breath. You're trying to impress someone, which in medieval terms means not smelling like spoiled beer and grave dirt. Good luck. Your tunic is pressed well, relatively, and you've chewed on a sprig of fennel for 10 straight minutes. Your jaw hurts, but your breath smells vaguely like licorice and hope. This is courtship, circa 1370. No love letters, no awkward text messages. Just you, your best herbs, and a vague smile through partially rotted teeth. The object of your affection arrives, clean, laughing, with a tiny pouch of lavender at their collar. You talk about livestock and weather. You keep your mouth angled just slightly away. It's like medieval flirting with defensive driving. Personal hygiene was already a struggle in the Middle Ages, but oral hygiene, that was a dark art. Yet breath specifically. Bad breath was widely recognized and feared. Chronic halitosis could ruin your reputation. Some even believed it signaled a rotting soul, so people got creative. You learn of one noblewoman who swishes with wine mixed with cinnamon and cloves every morning. Her breath is divine, and she's also missing 6 teeth. But nobody talks about that in villages. People chew on parsley, marjoram, or cardamom to cover up meaty morning smells. Some apply powdered sage directly to the tongue. Others simply hold a lemon peel in their mouth during social events. Despite never having actually tasted a lemon citrus, imports were rare and shockingly expensive. So most peasants substituted with turnip peel soaked in vinegar, which is not the same. You hear of one man who tried grinding dried mouse skulls into powder, convinced it would cure his mouth rot. He ended up sneezing bone fragments for a week. You wish that were a joke. It isn't. That method actually shows up in some medical manuscripts. Historians still argue whether this practice had symbolic roots or was just the desperate logic of someone who thought, what's the worst that could happen? And speaking of love, weddings often featured ceremonial wine that couples drank from the same cup, hence the importance of not breathing sulfur into each other's face. In one region, it was customary for the groom to chew on mint leaves during the wedding feast. The bride, meanwhile, was expected to rinse her mouth with rose water before the kiss. Romance, as always, is in the details. There's even a documented account of a merchant's daughter who refused a marriage proposal after getting too close to her suitor's death breath. She married a shepherd instead. The man was heartbroken and toothless by 40. In some areas, there were love potions designed to sweeten the breath. One recipe involves boiling lavender, apple peel, and a scrap of cloth blessed by a monk. You're not sure if it works, but the town baker swears it landed him a wife. She later confessed it was the smell of warm bread that won her heart. You see children being taught early. A mother gently brushes her son's teeth with a cloth dipped in honey water in time. Not to clean, exactly, but to prevent his breath from frightening the priest. God listens better when your mouth isn't. Foul, she tells him. The child nods solemnly. At feast days, breath becomes a battleground. You sit at long trestle tables, shoulder to shoulder, close enough to feel the heat from your neighbor's breath. Roasted onions, pickled fish, stale ale's a symphony of stomach-turning scents. Guests with the worst breath are usually seated near the doors. A coincidence? Absolutely not. Even royalty is not immune. Queen Isabella reportedly chewed clove buds before every state meeting. Her advisors kept their own supplies hidden in their sleeves. One diplomat fainted mid-negotiation, and rumor has it, it was from a mouth like death in summer. People start attributing personality traits to breath. Sweet breath, trustworthy, sour breath, secret sins, no breath at all. You're either a monk or already dead. You catch a whispered tale about a midwife who once claimed she could predict childbirth complications based on the father's breath. She was run out of town, but the idea stuck. Now you hear people muttering breath reveals the blood, like it's an old proverb. One fringe practice you try only once involves roasting a clove of garlic, wrapping it in linen, and placing it under your tongue before sleep. You wake up choking and smelling like a tavern brawl. Never again. But not all remedies are terrifying. You find a traveling friar who offers small wax tablets scented with herbs. You hold one under your tongue and slowly let it melt during Mass. It's pleasant, calming, even. For a moment, you feel civilized. That night, as you return home beneath a silver moon, you pause to chew a bit of rosemary. Your crush waved at you. Progress. You're not sure if it was the herbs or the fact that you didn't say much. Either way, your breath didn't chase them off, and, in medieval terms, that's love. You awaken in silence, save for the muffled rustle of parchment and the occasional whisper of prayer. You're in a monastery now, stone walls, heavy doors, and that soft, sweet smell of beeswax and old ink. The monks glide through the halls, in wool robes, heads bowed, but their mouths are a battlefield too. You came here seeking wisdom, maybe even a miracle. Word around the village is that the monks possess secret remedies for everything, including the cruel grip of toothache. What you find is more complicated. Inside the infirmary, Brother Alwyn leans over a desk illuminated by a narrow shaft of morning light. He's copying a medical text with the precision of someone terrified of misspelling a saint's name. You ask about teeth. He frowns and sets his quill down gently. He tells you, in a soft, solemn voice, that pain of the teeth is often the result of imbalance, sign, impure thoughts, or excessive consumption of cold foods. Bread crust, he adds, almost mournfully. The harder, the worse. He gestures to a nearby shelf, stacked with leather-bound tomes. Some are medical texts from as far as Salerno and Baghdad, places you only know from stories. Others are older, more mysterious, filled with illustrations of saints battling demons emerging from mouths. One manuscript describes toothache as a sign of a heated liver disturbing the upper organs. Another blames the influence of Saturn. You nod like this makes sense. Historians still argue whether monks practiced real medicine or mostly dabbled in spiritual explanations. But there's no doubt they were the closest thing to a university you'd find this side of the Alps. Brother Alwyn shows you a dried bundle of herbs, hyssop, chamomile, and tansy. For chewing, he says. Calms the gums and the spirit. You try it. It tastes like hay, but the bitter tingle distracts from the throb in your jaw. Later, you're invited to observe the monastery's oral prayer hour, where monks practice silence but chew fennel or angelica to stave off bad breaths, act of reverence. since their words are meant to honor God. A foul mouth, one monk says, offends even in silence. That's one theory. Another monk, Brother Giles, holds a slightly different opinion. He believes toothache is caused by tiny worms that live in the roots of the teeth, squirming and feeding off your sins. He insists the only cure is to hold a candle close to the cheek and draw the worm out with smoke. He offers to demonstrate on himself, and you watch in mild horror as he holds burning sage near his face and begins humming. You're not sure if anything emerges, but he looks pleased. One of the older monks, Brother Edwin, whispers that in his youth he tried to cure his own tooth pain by praying to Saint Apollonia while fasting for 7 days. I lost the tooth. Anyway, he sighs, but I gained humility. In the monastery gardens, you find plants carefully labeled with Latin names. Some you recognize: thyme, mint, valerian. Others are more exotic. You ask about a shriveled gray root. Mandrake, a monk answers. Too strong for the teeth, but good for visions. Noted during a meal, you sit with the monks and notice their quiet, measured chewing. Some have lost many teeth already. Their smiles, more gums than grin. Still, they seem serene. One monk shares his trick, mashing all food to a pulp with a mortar and pestle before eating. No chewing, no pain, he says. No joy, either, but peace. You hear of a manuscript deep in the archives that supposedly describes a method for regrowing lost teeth. You're excited until Brother Alwyn reveals it's just an allegory for spiritual renewal. Of course it is. As the sun sets, candles are lit, and the chapel fills with soft Gregorian chant. You sit in the back, jaw still sore, heart strangely full. Maybe it's the herb poultice tucked into your cheek, or maybe it's the calm of a place where no one pretends to have all the answers. Before you leave, Brother Giles hands you a scrap of parchment with a short prayer and a drawing of a smiling saint. Say this when the pain returns, he tells you. Even if it doesn't help, it'll distract you. That night, under your straw blanket, you whisper the words aloud, staring at the thatched roof overhead. The pain is still there, but somehow gentler, like it knows you've been somewhere holy. You return from the monastery to a world that feels noisier, messier, and far more pungent. There's smoke in the air, the livestock are restless, and people walk faster than usual. That can only mean one thing: someone's sick, and not just with a toothache this time. The plague is in the next village over, and when plague rolls into town, everyone forgets about their teeth until they rot right out of their heads. You help gather herbs for the healer: rue, wormwood, and dried marigold. Not because they cure anything exactly, but because they're thought to keep away the bad air, the miasma, that invisible, evil fog that slinks through the streets and steals your breath in your sleep. And honestly, breath is all anyone can talk about. They say you can smell the plague before it kills you, sweet and sour, like spoiled fruit and burning feathers. You believe it. Every time you pass someone coughing, you hold your breath and turn your face. But you can't escape the odor, especially not your own. Your neighbor, Thomas, hasn't eaten in 3 days. His gums are blackened. His breath smells like wet copper. His wife is trying to coax him to rinse with wine and salt, but he's too far gone. Later that night, the bell tolls once. Then again. Then again. In times like this, people stop worrying about dental hygiene. You eat what you can, when you can, and hope you still have the teeth to chew it. But plague doesn't care about your teeth. It eats you from the inside out, and the first place it makes itself known, often the mouth. Historians note how many plague accounts include grotesque descriptions of the mouth gums bursting, lips cracked, blackened tongues. Some suggest that plague-related halitosis was so horrific that it permanently changed attitudes about bad breath. You don't need a historian to tell you it's unforgettable. In some desperate homes, people smear their gums with crushed garlic and lard. It's not too clean, It's to mask, to overpower the rot and convince neighbors you're still healthy. After all, if your breath smells good, maybe you're not dying yet. Meanwhile, healers and charlatans rush in with miracle cures. You're offered one, a vial of vinegar mixed with rosewater, cinnamon, and mercury. You pass. Someone else drinks it and promptly vomits for hours. Whether from the mercury or the placebo, no one's quite sure. You help dig graves. Even in the mass pits, you notice things. A tooth glinting in the dirt, a jawbone with a gold molar rare, valuable, and probably looted before the body's even cold. Tooth gems were a thing once, especially among the wealthy, though they're less about style and more about status. You wonder if anyone still cares. As the days pass, you notice people becoming oddly obsessed with their mouths. Some carry sachets of herbs to breathe into. Others refuse to open their mouths at all, mumbling through clenched teeth like guilty children. One man you know starts sleeping with a clove of garlic in his cheek. Keeps the death away. He insists. He dies a week later. You hear whispers that some believe the plague enters through open mouths while you sleep. So people begin stitching their lips lightly shut at night, just enough to make them close. You see the marks the next morning. It's horrifying and fascinating in equal measure. In the middle of all this, you get another toothache. Of course. You do. You consider seeing the barber again. But the plague has reached your village now, and he's busy lancing boils and bleeding fevers. Instead, you try an old remedy a monk once described, soaking a strip of cloth in vinegar, salt, and urine, and wrapping it around your neck. Draws the poison downward, they said. You feel ridiculous, but also, oddly, it helps. There's even a story told in low voices of a woman who survived the plague because all her teeth fell out beforehand. Nothing left for the sickness to feed on, they say. You make a note to lose a few more, just in case. In the chaos, even the nobles start to look like peasants. The court physician to the local lord begins prescribing mustard plasters for infected gums. One noblewoman is seen gargling boiling milk infused with onion and cinnamon. Her lips blister, but she claims to feel cleansed. Historians still debate whether this reflects desperation or a genuine belief in the healing power of dairy. You try not to laugh or cry. Both hurt your jaw. When the wave of illness finally retreats, your village is quieter, emptier, but strangely, people start brushing their teeth more often, using cloth, sticks, even ashes, as if cleaning their mouths might keep the darkness from returning. You sit near the well one evening, chewing a mint leaf slowly. Around you, others are doing the same. No one says anything, but everyone is thinking the same thing. Breathe easy, if you can. You're still here. The court smells like beeswax, wet velvet, and something vaguely fishy, possibly the roasted carp from lunch, possibly just the general ambience. You're here under the guise of delivering herbs, but really, you're curious. Curious to see if the nobility really do have better teeth than the rest of us. Spoiler, they do not. The first person you see is a young page, with lips pressed tightly together. To keep my breath in, he mutters. The queen said I offended her breakfast. He hands you a pouch filled with clove buds and disappears behind a curtain. You press deeper into the chamber, marveling at the gilt mirrors, the woven tapestries, and there it is, a golden toothpick. Not just golden colored, real gold, resting in a velvet-lined box like a holy relic. Toothpicks, you quickly learn, are the aristocracy's obsession. They come in gold, silver, ivory, even crystal. Some are shaped like tiny daggers. Others dangle from chains, worn like jewelry. You spot a duke cleaning his teeth with a sliver of mother-of pearl while dictating a letter. It's equal parts glamorous and vaguely grotesque, but not everything glitters in the mouths of the rich. One baron flashes a grin that reveals two blackened molars and a gaping absence where a canine once lived. Battle injury, he says. You nod respectfully. Later you hear it was actually a chicken bone. In the queen's antechamber, a physician holds court. He's inspecting a noblewoman's mouth with a silver probe, murmuring things like imbalance of humors and gums of questionable loyalty. His assistant mixes a rinse of red wine, rosemary, and powdered pearl. You ask if it works. Absolutely not, the assistant whispers. Royal remedies often veer toward the absurd, crushed rubies mixed with honey, swan's fat applied to the cheeks to draw out gum fever. One lady in waiting dabs her tongue daily with saffron and claims it strengthens her speech. She also hasn't blinked in 10 minutes. There's a prince, youthful, dashing, and undeniably cursed with what can only be described as halitosis of legend. Servants approach him with bouquets held directly under their noses. You hear one say, "The prince could win a war with that breath alone." You all laugh, quietly. From a distance, despite the stench, royalty tries to maintain appearances. Decorative tooth boxers are all the rage. Painted wooden cases used to store removed teeth, often carved with flowers or saints. Some believe keeping the tooth close maintains spiritual balance. Others use them as polite ways to show off how many troubles they've endured. One duchess proudly displays hers like medals. You overhear gossip about the neighboring king who commissioned a portrait without his missing front teeth repainted. He said it showed character. Someone whispers. The artist apparently wept. Royalty also tried tooth transplants. True story. In the 15th century, some nobles began experimenting with transferring teeth from peasants into their own mouths. Whether this worked is highly questionable. Most likely, it resulted in infection. But when you're rich and desperate, the sky's the limit. And also, the hospital bill doesn't exist. Historians still argue whether tooth transplants actually took place, or were merely aspirational rumors passed down through frustrated dental journals and bored noblewomen. Either way, the peasants had opinions. You speak with a former servant who claims to have donated a tooth to a viscountess. Did she pay you? You ask. A crust of bread, he says, and it was stale. But it's not just about teeth. Breath matters. Nobles are gifted personalized rinse bowls, engraved, gilded, monogrammed. Some fill them with rose water and spit daintily before meals. Others have servants carry little sachets of herbs for inhaling between courses. One duke has a literal breath attendant at feasts. The worst breathers are strategically placed near open windows, the best breathed near the king. Seating arrangements are less about politics and more about halitosis hierarchy. Even love letters mention teeth. One suitor writes, "Thy smile doth shine, though missing 3, yet brighter than the morning dew it be." Romantic, you pass by the royal nursery. A nursemaid hums softly while dabbing a baby's gums with goose fat. The child shrieks. She shrugs. For teething, she says. If not for comfort, then for the distraction. You think of your own teeth. Crooked, a little loose, but still yours. You wonder if the royals ever considered that. Having money, silks, and songs written in your honor, but still losing teeth to the same relentless rot. It's comforting, in a strange way. That evening, as you leave the castle, you look back once. Somewhere behind those velvet curtains and gold-plated rinsing bowls, a prince is probably gargling cinnamon wine and wondering why his gums still sting. And somewhere, a servant is quietly pocketing a discarded golden toothpick to trade for something far more useful like bread that isn't stale. You return to your village just in time for a funeral, not of a person, but of a tooth. A boy lost his first molar, and his grandmother insists on burying it under the apple tree to keep the crows from stealing his youth. You watch the small ceremony, complete with muttered blessings and a dollop of honey on the dirt. Sweetness, apparently, keeps evil spirits away. It's strange how much superstition swirls around. Something as small as a tooth. You remember being told as a child that if you drop a tooth in a river, you'll never lose another. Your cousin swears has disappeared into the brook and he's never had a cavity since. He's also missing 5 teeth, but he says that's unrelated. Tooth loss is a rite of passage, sure, but also a spiritual event. You hear of villagers who wrap their teeth in linen and keep them in lockboxes, not for memory's sake, but for protection. Some believe if a witch finds your lost tooth, she can control your dreams. Others think that if a bird carries off your tooth, you'll grow feathers on your tongue. Superstitions vary, but they all agree on one thing: never leave your tooth unattended. In some places, parents throw their children's baby teeth onto the roof. The higher, the better. Helps the new one grow straight, they say. In other towns, it's burned in a hearth fire with a whispered rhyme: ash to ash, tooth to soot, let the devil keep his foot. No one knows what it means, but they say it fast and with fear. And that's usually enough. Historians still debate the origins of these rituals, whether they stem from ancient animist beliefs, or were shaped by the church's need to tame folk practices. Either way, the rituals stuck like sap to bark. Even adults follow strange customs. A blacksmith in your village claims he gained his strength by grinding down his extracted molars and mixing the powder into his morning ale. Adds grit. He says you make a polite face and pretend you're not gagging. One widow wears her late husband's tooth on a leather cord around her neck, so he still has a bite in him, she jokes. You laugh, but when she turns away, you swear you see her touch it gently, like a prayer. Tooth charms are traded at market, carved from bone, cast in pewter, even shaped from old coins. Some have tiny teeth embedded in them. Others are made to resemble smiling mouths with full sets, as if you could trick your own skull into behaving. You pass a traveling performer who does a trick where he pretends to pull out an audience member's tooth with a spoon. The crowd gasps. He winks and flips a hidden coin from his sleeve. Everyone laughs nervously, because the joke only works if you're not already missing that exact tooth. Tooth pain also finds its way into bedtime tales. Parents tell children that the tooth gobbler visits naughty boys and girls who lie about brushing. It doesn't leave coins. It leaves bite marks on their pillows. You check yours before bed, just in case. One fringe story sticks with you. They say in the mountains, there's a creature that collects discarded teeth and builds a castle out of them. A pale, hollow woman with a smile too wide, who rewards the careful and curses the careless. Give her your tooth willingly, and she grants strong bones. Lose it by accident, and she takes another. You hope that's just a story. As the moon rises, you sit by the fire and hold a small cloth pouch. Inside, 3 teeth. One from childhood, one pulled by the barber, and one you don't remember losing. You never buried them. You never burned them. You kept them close, just in case. Superstition may not stop decay, but it makes the rot feel personal. It gives pain a face, a name, a rhythm. And in a world without antibiotics or fluoride, belief is the strongest medicine of all. That night, you dream of teeth not falling, but growing. Rows and rows, perfect and gleaming, stretching endlessly. And when you wake, your jaw aches a little less. Or maybe you're just getting used to it. It's harvest time again. The air is crisp with drying hay and cooling soil, and your teeth, those that remain, still ache from the last frost. But they've carried you this far. Every bite of pottage, every nibble of smoked eel, every turnip has been a gamble. And yet, here you are. You sit beneath a low-hanging tree, running your tongue along the jagged landscape of your gums. It's like mapping a terrain you know too well. The molar ravine, the chipped incisor cliff, the noble bicuspid plateau now reduced to rubble. You once joked that your mouth was a battlefield. Now, it's more like a ruin. But that doesn't mean you've lost the war. The village has changed since you first noticed that dull ache years ago. More people chew herbs before meals. Children are scolded if they forget their morning salt rub. Even the barber sharpens his tongs a little less enthusiastically. Maybe it's not progress in the modern sense, but it's something. Still, tooth care remains a messy, painful, deeply personal ritual. One that touches everything from faith to love to survival. Every smile is hard-earned, every bite a risk, every remedy both cure and curse. You think of all you've tried: urine rinses, vinegar compresses, chew sticks, poultices that smell like old shoes. And yet, what helped most was rarely the ingredients, it was the ritual, the focus, the feeling that you were doing something. In a world so often out of your control, that meant more than the pain. There are rumors of new methods coming from far-off cities, of tin tooth caps, of oils imported from warm southern lands that actually numb the pain, of a man in Paris who makes false teeth from ivory. You scoff, imagining someone with a deer tusk smile, but also, you'd pay to see it. You visit the monastery again, just to check in. Brother Alwyn has passed, replaced by a younger monk who prefers peppermint and silence. He hands you a dried root and smiles without showing teeth. You do the same. Some habits never leave. A peddler offers you a mirror from Venice. You look in and almost don't recognize yourself. Time has worn you down, but there's something sturdy in your face now. Not every tooth is there, but you're still biting. Your niece asks about your missing tooth one night, and you tell her it ran away. Did it find a better mouth? She asks. Maybe, you say, or maybe it got tired of the soup. She laughs and says she's keeping hers forever. You don't tell her that's unlikely. Historians will go on arguing about whether medieval tooth care was survival or ceremony, whether it was faith or folly. But you know the truth. It was life. It was holding on through the pain, laughing through the gaps, speaking even when it hurt. You fall asleep that night with a sprig of mint under your pillow, just in case. Because even after all this time, you still hope to wake up with all your teeth. Just one more day, and now, with your jaw a little sore from all this medieval imagining. Let the tension melt from your shoulders. You've survived barber surgeons, herbal rinses, plagues, and pious monks all without needing to clench your jaw too tightly. Let that crooked smile soften. Let your teeth reel or imagine dressed for the night. The world around you fades to candlelight and quiet breath. No more vinegar-soaked cloths, no more golden toothpicks. Just the hush of a village slipping into sleep. The cool night air is still. A gentle breeze brushes the thatch roof. Somewhere, a lone dog sighs in its dreams, and you, lying comfortably, in your own time, in your own bed, with all the modern comforts, and perhaps even a toothbrush within reach, you can smile, knowing you've traveled through centuries without needing a single extraction. Let the memories of ancient rituals dissolve into the stillness. The myths and clove buds, the chants and herbs, the trembling tongues and soft prayers all flicker out like lanterns. Tonight, there is no ache, no sharp edge, just the gentle hum of history settling around you like a warm blanket. You are safe. You are whole. You are already healing. Breathe in slowly, and let it out like a sigh. Tomorrow, there may be more stories, but tonight, there's only this quiet peace and the soft curve of sleep waiting at the edge of your thoughts. End of script. Sweet dreams.